Darwinian evolution. Junk science.
I'm going to demonstrate to you tonight that Darwinian evolution is really an outdated relic from times that most people would really rather forget ever happened. But they did happen. And why is it that 150 years later we're still hanging on to this? That's, I think, an important question. Well, of course, some people would answer that question by saying, well, evolution is science. That's why we're hanging on to it. Because evolution came along and it replaced superstitious religion with science and reason. And people who have that view simply assume that science trumps religion. And for a lot of people, it seems to. For instance, in our public schools, science is okay, but creation is not. Science has trumped religion in our public school. This is true in many, many areas of society today. Well, if you want to get ahead in this world then, if religion is on the wane and so-called science is really the rising star, what do you have to do? Well, you got to get on board with science, right? And that's basically the story, because science is the child of the elite in our society. For you to be accepted by the scientific elite, then, you need to understand how things work out. You need to follow the accepted formula. So when you're talking about scientific subjects such as evolution, make sure you follow the accepted formula. Talk a lot about the scientific method. Cite a ton of canned, very familiar, blunt conclusions as examples. And most importantly, always support Darwinian evolution. And if you're not going to do that, just shut up. You don't deserve a voice. That is really the attitude that you face out there in the world. Either accept it or shut up because you are just ignorant. That's what you get. So, as a believer in the scriptures, do you have to accept that attitude? Do you have to be intimidated by people who take that attitude because they think that they know all the scientific language? You don't. Some of them may have letters behind their name. You don't. Does that mean you don't have a right to make a judgment about evolution, for example? Is that true? Well, the truth is about it, it's an elitist idea, isn't it? For them to think that they have a right to have an opinion, but you don't. And that just reflects the elitist origins of evolution. But instead of dealing in that realm, let's just stop for a minute and use simple reason. What is science? Well, here's the definition of science, according to Merriam-Webster. Knowledge about or study of the natural world based on facts learned through experiments and observation. So science is supposed to be something real based on things you can actually see and verify. That's what science is. And science, notice, is limited to the study of the natural world. Knowledge about or study of the natural world. It only concerns itself then with natural processes, natural things. So what does it not concern itself with? In fact, what does it not have any means or mechanism to deal with? That would be this. The scientist rightfully speaks only to the natural world. Elitist pretensions to the contrary do not fit the facts, so signal an attitude problem. You see, here's what the truth is. You have the finite natural world. That's the realm of science. Beyond that, you have the infinite spirit realm of the infinite creator. Is that the realm of science? No. Do they have any means of measuring that or dealing with that? Is that even part of what science is? According to the definition, it isn't. So when it comes to things of the spirit realm, it's the scientists that need to shut up because they've got nothing to say about it. And so when they take a theory like evolution, and then from that they deduce, oh, there is no God, there is no spirit realm, they are actually overstepping science into something else. So with all the letters that may be behind their name, what gives them a right to formulate opinions about the spirit world? So really, those of us who are, spiritually speaking, informed, intelligent, and operative, we don't have anything that we need to be intimidated about by science. Because what we know, who we are, and what we do does not even come under the realm of science. So why is it that people think that it does? Why is it that people think that science somehow trumps the spiritual realm? When obviously, even according to the definition, it doesn't even include that. That's what elitism is about. We're the smart people, you're the dumb people. That's what that's about. And really, just reject that out of hand because there is no basis for it. As a matter of fact, the scriptures speak to this in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14 and 15. It states, "Now the natural man doesn't receive the things of God's Spirit, for they are foolishness to him. And he can't know them because they are discerned spiritually. But he who is spiritual discerns all things, and he himself is rightly judged by no one." So what is this telling us? The natural man, and really for the purposes of this discussion, that's a scientist, because a scientist studies the natural world, right? So just limiting things to that realm, the natural man doesn't receive the things of God's Spirit, and it's really not even relevant to science. And it tells us here the natural man can't even know them. That is, the man who is just natural apart from the Spirit. He can't even know the things of the Spirit. And the reason is because these things are spiritually discerned. In other words, just like a scientist has to have his scientific instruments and methods to examine the natural world, you have to have your spiritual methods and your spiritual sight in order to understand and discern the spiritual world. The scientist doesn't have that equipment. And if you have received the Spirit, you do have that equipment. So, in the spirit realm, assuming you are a spiritual person, then you have equipment that the scientist doesn't have. In that realm, you are superior to the scientist. And that's simply true. It goes on and it says this, he who is spiritual discerns all things. Because notice this, the finite natural world is enveloped by the infinite spiritual world. So if you understand the infinite spiritual world, that includes the natural world. So being a spiritual person, you do have a right to make judgments about that, but not vice versa. So the case is very interesting because the reality is it's exactly opposite to what the scientists would have us believe. Now, here's something we need to think about then. To give science priority above the Creator is to make a God out of science. That is idolatry. This is why this is such an important issue for us, because we cannot afford to let the world intimidate us into accepting the claims of evolution as if somehow so-called science is superior to the Creator that we know. As spiritual men and women, it is our obligation to judge scientific claims by spiritual principles and reject those claims that don't measure up to what the Creator has revealed. And let me tell you this. If this had happened when Darwinian evolution was first put forward, then a lot of misery would have been avoided. Because this teaching of Darwinian evolution has brought about terrible misery on mankind. And this is something evolutionists would rather you didn't know. They would rather you didn't understand this history. But when you look at this, you're going to see how defective this teaching really is. And we can judge this by spiritual principles, which is what we're going to do tonight.
Was this video informative? Click the like button below to help spread the word to others. Feel free to leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss out on more amazing content from Eliyahu Ben David.